He is an even keel, I think. Very stable, very reliable.
He's one of the most high integrity people that I've ever met, and I think he values his word and a handshake above anything else.
I think the best way to describe Bill is the way he described himself to me when we first met. He said he was a gray suit with a paisley lining.
You ask him a question, he will give you an incredibly thoughtful and intricate and many times long, but thoughtful answer.
What I got from Bill was an incredible lesson in business ethics, because he's the most ethical person I've ever encountered in my life.
I find it amazing that he's always so, just so consistent and so mellow and just such a nice guy across the board.
I think Bill's so special that he can twist and turn a subject in 100 different directions in order to get the right answer. And he always has the right answer.
I grew up in El Paso, Texas, where my father was in the hotel business. And an early influence on me was certainly my father and Connie Hilton, who was a golfing pal of my father's. Eventually, I read Connie's book called Be My Guest, which is a great book on how to create real estate value by combining good properties with great management. Another important influence as I was growing up was being in military school from the 5th grade through the 9th grade here in Los Angeles. And out of that experience, you learn discipline and leadership.
He was made the student manager of the ASSU, which is the Associated Students of Stanford University, all student activities, and he had responsibility for the funds that underwrote all student activities. So clearly at this point he already had a very mature business sense and a sense of responsibility.
One of the most memorable experiences I had during that time was serving on the committee that planned the new student union, the new Tressiter Union. Out of that experience and interrelating with the architect and making some suggestions, which he graciously accepted into the plan, sort of set a tone for my later work, office building and the interrelationships between people and organizations. The building that almost everyone remembers when they see it is the Wilshire Palisades building along Ocean Avenue in Santa Monica. It's an 11-story building terraced back from the street so that it's quite distinctive. Lawrence Welk, famous musician and band leader, who was the owner of the property, asked us to help him develop it and pilot it through the various approval processes that would be necessary. Out of that grew a wonderful relationship with Lawrence and his family. I later became a director of his family company and was able to learn a lot about the music business, which interested me as well. Another project that people remember is the Howard Hughes Center along the 405 freeway near the Los Angeles airport. We were asked to come up with plans to develop that property and eventually to build the first major building on the site.
I'd heard about Tooley & Company and what an amazing firm it was, and then I met Bill Tooley and Craig Ruth, and I knew immediately it was the firm that I wanted to work for. There were no women heading up leasing for any major office projects then, so they really took a risk at hiring me. Bill always made me feel like a part of the team.
Well, you can't take a drive across town with my dad without stopping at one property or another. And as a kid, it didn't make sense to me. We just sort of spent a lot of time cruising parking lots while he would make notes about a maintenance issue here or contact the manager about something.
They were providing leasing, management, and development services for the Irvine Company. And he listens, he responds non-judgmentally. I can remember in situations where someone or even myself would bring up something and be a little frustrated with it or negative, and his thoughtfulness would always see the side of, well, how can we turn that into what we want it to be?
Bill had a notion about what the tenants in a building would want. why a tenant would be excited to be in a building. Most of the buildings we were doing were speculative office buildings. That meant that we had to appeal to the marketplace. But he had a real sense that we were building for the tenants.
I met Bill. It was approximately 1997 when there were plans for the new cathedral in downtown Los Angeles. One of the biggest. It seats 4,500 people when it's full. And I would give Bill a lot of credit because I had never done a project obviously that size. And he was the one that advised me from the beginning, and he continued advising.
I met Bill in, I think it was March of 1986. I had just joined the Federal Reserve, and one of the first events I participated in was the dedication of the new branch building in Los Angeles. Bill was very involved in that. He was the director of the LA branch, and he also served as chairman of the building committee. That building, that branch, came in on time and on budget. He is a person that is extremely reliable, and what he says you can depend on.
Bill is on the board and a big supporter of the San Francisco Traditional Jazz Foundation. One of the other members of that board now, and an object of our affection for a very long time, is a man named Jim Cullum, who has run for a very long time, 40 years, maybe more, out of San Antonio, something called the Jim Cullum Band. Bill Tooley has been a fervent supporter of Cullum, a fervent supporter of the San Francisco Traditional Jazz Foundation, and now quite a supporter of jazz at Stanford.
So jazz gets me jazzed. I loved it. Love the music, love the dancing, love the history of it.
Bill said, let's go listen to some jazz. And so we did that, and we were in this little club, and I was looking at the group performing, and Bill was behind me, and they were getting more and more into their jazz, and all of a sudden I hear behind me, "Yeah, man, go, go!" And that was the same Bill Tooley that in all other times is calm and mellow.
In my law firm, we would open an office in LA or San Francisco or wherever, and Bill would come to the opening, and at the opening there would already be a tree, in the lobby that he would send over. So we would always know the office was officially opened, if the Tooley tree had been installed.
One of Bill's passions is deep sea fishing, and he had an amazing boat called the Billfish that we had a lot of very fun Tooling Company parties on. One in particular that I remember, I was saying goodbye and walking down the gangplank, waving goodbye to everybody, and next thing I knew I wasn't looking, I stepped right into the water. Bill, of course, was his totally gracious self and made me feel not embarrassed. He thought it was great fun.
He had a son who wanted to learn to drive a motorcycle, have a motorcycle. And Bill learned to drive a motorcycle, and then he and his son went cross-country together. That's Bill.
I think as people look back at Bill's career, they'll see a remarkable person who really took the time to get to know people, to do what he said he would do, and along the way built some fantastic projects.
In business, I think that's his dedication and not ever thinking anything is too small is what made him so successful.
I think he would like to be remembered as a successful person who was successful in several ways, successful in business and successful in his family life, because I think he sees all of that as a whole.
I think Bill has given his grandchildren the opportunity to see a good role model, someone who is caring and loving and considerate.
Well, I think I'd like to be remembered as a man who built good buildings and built a good organization. And along the way did something that benefited the community